March 2nd, 2008. A man climbs a flight of stairs in the Albuquerque. He is 50 years old. He is dying of lung cancer. And that morning, standing in his own bathroom, he shaved his head down to the skin. He is carrying a plastic bag. At the top of those stairs is the office of man who days earlier beat his partner half to death and stole a pound of his product. Now he walks in. He was asked who he is, and for the first time in the entire series, the first time anyone anywhere hears it, he gives his name that isn't his.
Heisenberg.
Yes, he asks for $50,000, 35 for the stolen product and 15 for what has done to his partner. The room laughs at him, so he reaches into the bag, pulls out a single crystal and says 9 words.
You got one part of that wrong. This is not meth.
After these words, he immediately throws it with a raw force at the floor. The windows blows out, glass rains down onto the streets, air conditioning units come off to the wall, car alarms start going off down the block. When the smoke clears, he's still standing in the middle of it with a bloody nose, $50,000, and with a new name he got. It's the best scene in the entire season, and almost nothing in it is possible. A single crystal cannot do that. Nobody could have carried that bag up of those stairs, and a blast strong enough to throw an air conditioning unit into the streets does not leave the man standing underneath it with a nosebleed. So the question isn't whether the show got the chemistry wrong, it's why a series this obsessive about detail got it wrong in its single most famous chemistry scene, and whether anyone involved knew. Yes, they knew. The answer ran through a failed MythBusters test. A chemistry professor from Oklahoma and federal agent sitting in the Breaking Bad writers' room, reading scripts before they were shot. Let's get into it in deep dive. Start with what's actually in the bag. Fulminated mercury is rare. It's what the chemists call a primary explosive, a compound so unstable it can be set off by friction, by heat, by spark, even by a shock. What is exactly why nobody uses it as a bomb? They use it as a trigger. For the most of 19th century, mercury fulminate is what made blasting caps work. A tiny amount detonates, and that detonation sets off something much bigger. It's the match, not the fire. So there's already a problem with this thing. Walt isn't using it as a detonator, he's using it as an entire explosion unit. That is not what this compound does. But let's not argue a theory because somebody actually tested it. MythBusters ran this scene in a Breaking Bad special with the material, and here we are with the three findings. All three are bad news. So the first one, they took 50 grams of mercury fulminate and threw it at the ground with human force, exactly the way Walter White does it. Nothing happened. So now the second finding. So they escalated, they fitted it with a blasting cap and forced the detonation. It exploded and it still didn't blow out the windows of the room, not close enough, which the scene shows. So the third try. So then they worked out what it could actually take to produce what we have seen on the screen. Windows gone, air conditioners in the street, car alarms down the block. An explosion that size going a few feet from Walter White does not give him a nosebleed, it kills him. And it does not stop there because he's still holding the bag. He walks out of that room carrying what he tells Tuco is a pound of stuff. If one crystal produced that blast as the rest of the bag is a bomb sitting in his hand, the shockwave sets it off. Everyone in the building dies, including him. The scene needs this material to be powerful enough to level a room and stable enough to carry in a plastic bag, hold in your palm, and walk up stairs with. It cannot be both. And there's a problem before he even reaches the door. Look at what's in the bag, big blue tinted crystals. That's the entire bluff. Tuco has to believe it's a product because it looks so much real, like a myth. Real mercury fulminate doesn't look like that. It's a fine powder, closer to salt than rock candy. Off white, grey, sometimes brownish, not translucent, not blue, not chunks of could pick a piece of it off. So the plot doesn't hold either. Now, here's my favorite part of this. When Gilligan actually appears in the episode and when Mythbusters put the field test to him, he pointed at a line Walt says in this scene. Fulminated mercury with a little tweak of chemistry. Gilligan's explanation for that tweak, Walt mixed it with a silver fulminate. Oh, no, that make it worse. Silver fulminate is more unstable than a mercury fulminate. Significantly, it's so shock sensitive, it can detonate under its own weight, meaning past a certain quantity, it sets itself simply from being piled off. So the proposed fix means Walt assembled roughly a pound of something that explodes from sitting in a bag, carried it across a town, and walked into a flight a stage past armed man. He would have died in the car. So why is the show this obsessive about the detail this wrong in its most famous chemistry scene? Because it's wrong on purpose, and this is the actual story. Donna Nelson is a professor of organic chemistry at the University of Oklahoma. She joined Breaking Bad as its science advisor near the end of the season 1 and stayed for the rest of the run. So here's what she has said publicly about the show was doing. So on the chemistry, they deliberately put in faulty steps. They'll start with one method of synthesizing methamphetamine, but then switch to another. A description of what it's like actually follow the show's procedure. It's like watching a video of someone starting out on a trip of Dallas, ending up in a Chicago. So the scenes are individually accurate. They are just stitched together from a procedures that doesn't connect. All of them start to finish and you arrive nowhere. And then there's a part almost nobody knows. Nelson speaking to Scientific American on how far that went. Gilligan had a DA agents advising the show and checking what was written. Her words, the DA helped to ensure that certain critical steps were omitted and that everything in this regard was kept legal. That was the very smart of Vance that ensured that any complaints they received could be referred to the DEA. Yes, that was a very smart move. Sit with that for a second. The show wasn't just avoiding a recipe, it was legally armored. Every complaint about the chemistry had a federal agency standing behind the answer. So, could Walt's bomb really exist? Mercury fulminate is real. It's really a primary explosive. It really did make blasting caps work for over a century. But the thing in that scene, a stable pound of it, in blue crystal form, that survives a car ride and levels a building from a single thrown fragment while leaving the thrower alive, has never existed and it never can't. Gilligan's own term for it when the test results came back against him artistic license. And now the part almost nobody covers what was happening on the other side of the camera. This is the first episode in the entire series in which Walt Walter was bald. Cranston doesn't wear a cap for it. He shaves, and because the episode was shot out of sequence, there are scenes in this same episode where he was wearing a wig, filmed after the shave. Watch the scene where Hank goes through this chemistry storage. It's a wig. The head, the hat, and the name all arrive in the same 47 minutes. Then there's Raymond Cruz Tuco, the moment where he puts a cigarette out on his tongue. That was not the script. Cruz did it. An actor deciding, live, that the audience needs to understand this man does not process pain the way other people do, and finding a way to say it without a line. And both Cranston and Aaron Paul went through DEA training as preparation. Real agents, real chemists walked them through the process, not so they could reproduce anything, so their hands would look right, so the fear would look right. Every part of that production was built to be convincing. None of it was built to be repeatable. That was the design. That was the beauty of Breaking Bad. Now, which brings to me the title, and this is where it stops being about chemistry. A crazy handful of nothing isn't a chemistry reference. It's a line from Cool Hand Luke from 1967. Dragline says it's about Luke after Luke wins a poker hand holding worthless cards. And earlier in the same episode before Tuco, Before the shave, there's a poker game at Walter's house. Walt bets everything, Hank holds, and then Mary turns the cards over. Walt was holding nothing at all. The episode tells you exactly what it's doing twice before the explosion ever happens. Because Heisenberg isn't a chemist who built a bomb. Heisenberg is a bluff. He's a man who worked out that if the performance is convincing enough, nobody checks the cards. Walter White walks into the room with something that looks lethal and is mostly a theater. So does the show. They are running the same trick at the same moment in the same frame, presenting same thing that looks like dangerous chemistry and is deliberately carefully, federally supervised nonsense. And it works on us for exactly the same reason it works on Topo. Because the performance is that good. The bomb was never the point. It's a handful of nothing, and the man holding it become somebody.